Joining us in the studio is Dean Darling, longtime friend, and you probably know him as the voice of Marist basketball and working with Army and all the ESPN games that you do. So,
I appreciate you having me.
I wanted you to come in because I know there's a lot of juniors and seniors in high school, or even some college kids, who are wondering, how are we going to get into this business? And it's not easy. It gets harder as the years go on, as it gets more popular. But I figured, you have some grassroots stories that you might be able to convey to some of our audience and tell them what you've been through and maybe give some suggestions of what they should be doing now.
Well, first of all, I never thought I was going to be a radio or a TV announcer. I went to college for basically clerical work, business administration, because in those vocational tests, I showed up good in that. I didn't even think about any kind of broadcasting. And the way I got my illustrious career started was one day I'm in English class at Arlington High School, and I get called down to the principal's office. Now, I'm not a bad kid, and I'm like, this is serious. Why am I getting called down to the principal's office? And the vice principal actually said to me, he said, Mr. Darling, he goes, the local radio station's going to be in town, and they're going to be doing the Arlington basketball game this Friday night. We need a statistician. We know you used to play with some of the players, and you know them, and it would probably help the other announcer. And the first thing I said was, I don't have to talk, right? And he goes, oh, absolutely not. You're just doing stats. So I show up that Friday night, and I introduce myself. I remember the gentleman's name from WKIP, still in existence now, 1450. I said, oh, hi, my name's Dean Darling. And he goes, oh, hi, Mike Warren. I understand you're going to be helping me tonight. And I go, I don't have to talk, right? He goes, absolutely not. So, okay, so I felt at ease. I had my chart all ready with the players' names and stuff, and the JV game went a little bit too long, and he had to come on the air. I think it was like 8 o'clock, and he comes on the air, and he goes, hi, everybody, I'm Mike Warren, WKIP, game of the week, Arlington, I believe they were playing Beacon, and he says, and now joining me is Dean Darling. And he shoves a mic in front of my face. And he goes, and Dean, give us a rundown on the team. I had played with some of the guys in earlier years, and I had to speak. And I was like, I didn't have time to get nervous.
Yeah, well, that's probably a good thing.
That was a great thing.
Were you right into it?
Yeah.
Right into it?
Yeah. And eventually, I became the regular color commentator for games my junior and my senior year. Then I went on to college. I was at SUNY Cobleskill, and they had this little radio station. It was like a closet, and I had to become a disc jockey. They didn't have sports, so I said, well, I'll get my foot in the door, and I was a disc jockey, and I was playing album-oriented rock and top 40, and I was there for 2 years. I graduated, and then I moved on to SUNY Fredonia. And when I was looking to transfer, I saw their college radio station, and I was like, wow. It was like a big-time radio station. Yeah. And I got in there, and the upperclassmen from the college, a lot of them were from New York City and Long Island. And they took me under their wing. I got my own radio show. Again, I was a top 40 disc jockey, but I got a chance to do sports. And we were the Fredonia State Blue Devils, and I got the chance to broadcast their games on radio. We would travel down to this area, New Paltz and Albany, weekend road trips. And it was a great experience. And I was on commercial radio, which then helped me put together a resume.
Sure. And what did you do with the tape then?
So what I did was I got a job. WHVW in the local market needed a disc jockey for 1 month. They were going from top 40 to all news, and they just needed somebody to bridge. I graduated high school on a Saturday, and I was working for them on a Monday, and they were very upfront with me. And they said it's only a 30-day gig. So I did that, and I worked in a hardware store. I'm a college graduate, and I'm selling lumber and things of that nature. And you know what? And then I got a job up at WINR in Binghamton, and I commuted on weekends, and I worked up there Saturday nights and Sunday as a disc jockey again. But my goal always was to do sports. The local radio station, K104 it's known as now, WSPK, needed a nightman, disc jockey. I became the disc jockey at night, but I had my foot in the door. They were doing Army football and Army basketball sports, and that's how eventually, for the first year, and it killed me, I had to engineer the games back at the radio station because somebody was ahead of me.
Sure.
I found out the news director who was doing the games was leaving, and I went in there with my resume tape that I had gotten from Fredonia State, and I said, I'm your man. I want to do basketball. I want to do Army basketball. And I got the job. And it was pretty good. There was a guy named Mike Krzyzewski who was the head coach at the time at Army.
Yeah, right.
And I got to work 3 years with him, and he just took me under his wing.
Did you really?
And he knew I was wet behind the ears. I thought I knew a little bit about basketball. Oh my God, I didn't know anything. But he made me part of the family. He would write me great letters at the end of every season and tell me how I was a valuable cog to their machine and how his players admired my work ethic. That really gave me confidence. And from there, I was able to take off. And then I eventually got asked to do Army football color.
Yeah.
And this is an interesting story where I was a disc jockey again during the morning, doing the mornings, but they came to me and they said, hey, we want you to do color on football. Well, I'm a play-by-play guy. And I said, oh, no. I said, no, thanks. They come back the second day and they go, listen, Army really wants you to do the football games. And I said, but I don't know about color commentating. And then basically it came back the third day. They go, okay, if you don't take it, we're going to take basketball away from you.
Boy.
So I ended up doing football 35 years later.
Yeah, amazing. And color and play-by-play is a lot different. What do you see as the differences between the two?
Well, the bottom line was, I didn't have the confidence to do the color, and it's all about preparation. I think that's the underlying theme of it.
But play-by-play is a lot of preparation as well.
It is, but I had to really learn the football game.
You have to be more of an X's and O's guy.
You did, and what I did was I taught the former players. I taught the coaching staff at Army was really good to me. They, again, fed me knowledge and boned up on the rules. You got to know the rules.
Yes, right.
And basically, I developed my own niche and worked with some really good play-by-play guys and formed a good relationship. But yeah, the play-by-play is you basically speak while the action's going on versus the color commentator. You get about 20, 25 seconds to interject your opinion or break it down while it happened.
Yeah. So what maybe a lot of people don't know is that Dean was my mentor because I was a newscaster on News Center 6 back in the day out of Wappingers Falls, and they needed a color commentator for the Marist basketball games. You were doing play-by-play, and so I had to do color. And what struck that was what you had said about the team taking you in. I think Marist did that for me. They started to show me their scouting reports, and so I had all this knowledge that I was able to convey, and that's what a color guy would do.
And it is. It's like a marriage when you and your color commentator have to be basically friends. You have to be joined at the hip. And you and I would answer each other's questions a lot of time, even before they were asked.
Right.
And that's really important. You got to have that chemistry.
Yeah, you've worked with a lot of well-known people that our audience would know. Let's just run down the list, starting with Mike Breen.
Yeah. Mike Breen, now this is an interesting position. Mike Breen wanted to be a play-by-play guy, but I was the play-by-play guy.
Right.
He was doing local radio for WEOK and WPDH, and he was doing high school games of the week. And he kept trying to get his foot in the door. Somebody was ahead of him. Eventually that person left, and then he came in and he became my color commentator. And we worked together 4 or 5 years, and it was like putting on a glove with him as well. It was a lot of fun, and eventually, who knew he'd become the lead anchor on the NBA for ABC, and TNT and ESPN. It's amazing his story, the way it took off.
Yeah, Freddie Coleman.
Freddie, good guy. Yeah, Freddie Coleman's on ESPN now.
Yeah, all these guys came from this area.
Yeah. Brian Kenny, who's now on MLB Network. Brian Kenny and I'll tell you a quick story on that. He and I are doing a TV game. It's his first ever TV game, right? We're over at Fairfield, Marist and Fairfield. The ball goes in the air. I'm play-by-play. He's color. And the ball, there's no whistle for the first 3 minutes. The action goes back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Right. I look over at him, and he's doing this. Dog. He didn't know about the speed of the game. He wasn't used to it.
Yeah, right, yeah.
And
there's also there's a give and take. There's a tempo and a timing between play-by-play and color, where you kind of know where you can interject. Play-by-play pretty much runs the show, and then color tries to fit his way in there, right, or her way in there.
And there's a major difference also between radio and TV, because in TV, as you well know, you have a producer in your ear that's kind of giving you the direction. He wants the program to go. He's the boss. And basically, you have to set up your color commentator. Where on radio is your color commentator has more freedom, and then they basically just analyze. And it's different. It's different. In football, you have more time. In basketball and hockey, you don't have much time at all. And you just got to try to zip in your quick opinions.
Yeah, let me tell you, if you ever want to try this on your own, turn on a hockey game and just in your own living room, just try and do a play-by-play thing. I've done that with Dean. We used to do the
Civic Center.
the championships for high school hockey. I never saw or had so much appreciation for somebody who could do it as well as Dean did, until I tried doing it once in my living room. And it's a very, very hard, especially hockey, because it's so fast. And with the players in helmets, and they don't have, if they don't have names, you don't know who's who. So you used to have little tricks where, you know, somebody had a certain sock or a certain sleeve. Or,
They wore tape on their shooting hand, or whatever you can look. And I still use those tricks now, even in football, because a lot of times in football you're way high in a stadium.
Yeah, right.
A lot of times you got to use binoculars. You got to look. Is he wearing something around his thigh pad? Is he wearing something on his wrist?
Little
That type of
identifiers.
thing. But I tell you, the hardest sport I ever did, as far as speed was concerned, boxing. I did Tracy Patterson
Yep.
and Benavides at the at Marist one day, and I did radio play-by-play, and at the end of the first round, 3 rounds, I was spent. My mouth couldn't keep up with their punches because they were lightweights, right?
Sure.
And I was like, oh my God, I hope one of them knocks each other out, because I don't know how I'm going to go 12 rounds. Turned out it was a 12-round fight.
right, that was a snow day, wasn't it?
Bad. March 13th, it was a blizzard.
Oh yeah, it was really a bad snow. All right, so you've done all these things. ESPN, which people will recognize Dean now doing a lot of college games. What advice could you give to our viewers of how they should proceed to try and get in?
Well, you just hit it on the head. What you just said was, and I had talked to, actually, I got a note back and forth from Marv Albert, because I had sent my tape to him through some connections, and he said, sit in front of a TV and take, back then, a tape recorder.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And record yourself. Turn off the sound. It's the weirdest thing in the world for you to do play-by-play with nobody else in the house. You're in a room by yourself, off a TV monitor, right?
Yeah.
And then listen back, and then I would send him the tape, and he would critique it for me.
Really?
Yeah, I was very fortunate
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
I had sent him a regular general tape, and then he said, try this too. So that's the first thing I would do. Colleges are so much more advanced now than when I went to school 40 years ago. I'm so, and I look at these college facilities.
Yes.
They didn't have TV either back then.
Right.
They didn't have TV studios, so their radio studios are unbelievable. And then, like you said, TV, learn as much as you can at the TV facilities. Now, I'm not the biggest proponent of a communications degree. I believe in getting, maybe if you're going to do communications, get a minor in business or something like that. I actually got a degree in business administration, a minor in economics, and I just was a sponge. And at the radio station, college radio stations, I learned from the upperclassmen, and I got a chance to go out in the field and do things. That's another suggestion of mine. It's to just get involved with your local radio station, especially on the college level.
And be persistent.
Be persistent.
Yeah.
And then volunteer if you work for a local TV station or something like you have here, HVNN or Hudson Valley Sports. Volunteer to get involved. I know you got some young people here with us today, and that's great to get an opportunity, get behind the scenes, do stuff, and learn from other people's mistakes. It's a great way.
Yeah, and it's the hands-on too. There's classroom training, and classroom training is great, but it's the hands-on stuff that is really going to kind of burn in your memory and give you the confidence that you need to be able to go out and do the things that you want to be able to do.
For young people out there, the more you do, the more you'll gain the confidence, like in any other vocation.
Yep.
And when you have confidence, you can go out and you can kill the world. You can really make a difference.
Yeah, good. Well, Dean, we want to thank you for sharing that insight and some of those great stories.
Yeah.
And that's the lesson from the master. I consider him the best in the business. So, if you're looking to get into this profession, start with that. Just start at those first few steps and just keep pursuing it. And persistence overcomes resistance. Just keep that in mind. That's going to do it for this edition of The Mashup. Thanks for joining us. I'd like to thank Dean Darling for joining us. And thank you for joining us as well. We'll see you next time here on The Mashup.